Another 1 or 2 minutes, I think.
Mm. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Vidya Ramachandran. I'm the founder and president for Cleveland Moms for Moms. Cleveland Moms for Moms, founded in 2017, is a vibrant community dedicated to empowering immigrant Indian moms in Cleveland. With nearly 1,000 members, we foster collaboration, knowledge sharing, and lasting connections. Our organization goes beyond conventional boundaries, enriching and empowering members' lives as a steadfast support pillar in various aspects of motherhood and beyond. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Suma Mallikarjunaya. Suma is a senior application engineer at Joanne Fabrics, playing a key role in developing and enhancing Joanne.com. Her expertise drives continuous improvement and innovation for Joanne Fabrics' online platform. Suma is also a supermom and an inspiration to many in the Cleveland Moms community. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Suma.
Thank you, Vidya, for your kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Mr. Varun Jambunath, our esteemed speaker and LinkedIn insider, leading strategy and operations at LinkedIn. Varun's diverse background includes impactful roles at EY in technology and business consulting, leadership in startup transformations at Spalding Ridge, and co founding Tamit Consulting while a student at OSU. As an Ohio student, Ohio State University alum and LinkedIn insider, Varun offers a unique perspective in today's workshop, covering impactful resumes, LinkedIn mastery, interview strategies, and strategic use of AI. Just a few housekeeping rules. Meeting recordings will be shared later. Please post any questions in the chat section and it will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Now, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Varun Jambunath. Varun, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm very excited to be here and share some tips and tricks about how to navigate a job hunt or a job search in 2024. So with that, I'll go ahead and share my screen and walk through a few things here. Cool. So hopefully you guys can all see the slide that says mastering the job search process in 2024.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So with that, I'll start with the agenda. So 4 essentially main topics that I'm going to be going through today. It's 1, which is on how to create an impactful resume. 2 is how to leverage LinkedIn as a job seeker. 3 is job interview strategies. And 4, how to use AI to essentially get more leverage out of those previous strategies and get an edge in 2024. And lastly, at the end, we'll have questions and answers. Cool. With that, I wanted to start by talking about a resume. So first thing about a resume is that the shorter and more concise your resume is, the better it is. So again, this is talking about the format specifically. But employers review dozens, hundreds of resumes like per position and usually prefer shorter ones that they can quickly kind of scan and summarize a candidate's qualifications. So the stat that people often reference is that the average time you have to capture a reader's attention is 6 seconds. So the main takeaway there is you want to make sure that your resume is as impactful as possible. It's easy to read and it's simple so that the recruiter, whoever it is that's reading it, can quickly get an understanding of what your key talents are and what you might bring to the job position. So with that in mind, usually, like ideally, a resume should be about 1 page in length. However, there are certain circumstances in which a 2 page resume is acceptable. So one is experience, the other is depending on the industry that you're a part of. So looking at experience, if you're further along in your career, so like maybe 10 plus years of experience, and all of those are very relevant and need to be captured, then that's one of those examples when it's fine to have a 2 page resume. If you work in government, academia, or science, and you need to document, clearances, publications, citations, things like that, that go beyond just your job experiences, then that's also an industry specific thing where recruiters are expecting a longer resume or a CV because they know that there's more at stake. Same thing with some of these like executive positions. The recruiters and headhunters at that level, you know, are kind of going to be expecting longer resumes because they're typically targeting candidates that have more experience. But the main thing to remember is if you do go the 2-page route, make sure that all the experiences you have listed are relevant and impactful for the role, and it's not just necessarily a laundry list of everything that you've done. So again, with that, a recruiter will be paying more attention to the first page on the resume. So all your most important things need to be there as well. So with that, I'll talk about how to organize your resume. So one of the things that a resume usually has is an objective or a career summary statement of some sort. It then has a chronological listing from most recent to past of all your employers, along with the accomplishments. And then finally, educational requirements, certifications, special skills, things like that. The main call out that I wanted to add here is that there's not necessarily one perfect format for a resume. So the resume can essentially follow any of these rules or also break them depending on your unique circumstance. So some people may omit an objective or career summary statement. They may not think it's necessarily relevant. They may think that their experience speaks for itself. Other people may be highlighting volunteer activities over jobs, things like that. So maybe if you've been out of the workforce for maybe like the past 5 years, but you've been, you know, pretty involved in volunteering, and you think that there's some transferable skills there that you'd be able to highlight, that's like a good opportunity to use that instead. So again, not always, you know, traditional. Everyone has a different way of approaching the resume, but at the end of the day, the main thing you want to be highlighting is whatever experiences best highlight your skills and whatever best highlights that you're a good fit for a job. So again, as you know, whether you're re-entering the workforce, entering the workforce the first time, whatever it may be, depending on the type of roles that you're targeting, you want to be very mindful and thoughtful of how you want to cater your resume to kind of meet that. Before I continue further too, I'll show you some examples once I get through all of like the way you put together a resume of different formats of resumes and what those look like while highlighting certain key points within them. But with that, some more details on how to organize your resume. So again, an objective or professional summary. So this is just a 2 to 3 sentence summary of, you know, who you are, what value you bring to the table, and essentially any top career achievements you may have that you want to highlight and convey to an employer. So again, this is your chance to create a narrative for yourself that goes beyond what your job experiences are, if that is something that you think is advantageous. Again, depends on your circumstance. From there, you want to list all of your different experiences. So things like your current and most recent job, all the relevant experience you've gained. Essentially, yeah, kind of just the main things that are applicable to a job. And then lastly, you want to talk about skills. This is pretty important because oftentimes today, when people look for jobs, there's very specific, like clearly outlined skills that an employer is searching for. And this is something that's apparent on LinkedIn as well, which I'll get into during the later portion of the session. But it's very important for you to highlight specifically what skills you bring to the table, whether it's things like, you know, specific software skills, whether it's something that's maybe niche and high in demand. You want to highlight things of interest, languages, things like that. But you know, things that are considered more so the bare minimum, it may not be worth adding. Things like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Office, those are usually things that people would expect you to have going into the job. So how to structure your resume bullet points. So now we're getting into how to actually, what sort of format and structure you should use when writing your resume. Instead of just creating a list of all the job duties you've had and all of your professional experiences, list only the most relevant accomplishments. So be sure to review the job description so you can include achievements the employer will find interesting. This is a key point because I think something that a lot of people tend to do is they'll create one resume and then not really make many updates to it. They'll kind of just send it to many different employers. They'll kind of send it around, not really tailor it to the specific job you're applying for. And I think in order to best set yourself up for a good chance of getting a call back from a recruiter, you want to make sure that you're tailoring whatever's on your resume to meet the expectations of the job. Again, what this really means is just reworking your resume each time you send it out. So if there's a specific position you're targeting, you want to make sure that everything, the key information that's stated on there, like the responsibilities, the experience they're looking for, the skills that they want to see you have, you want to make sure that the language in your resume best reflects that and can best convey that. Because again, your resume is like your first and best opportunity to present yourself to a potential employer. So you want to make sure that you make it as easy as possible for them to see how you fit into the role that they're targeting. You don't want it to be one of those things where you could be very qualified, very good for the role, but if your resume doesn't make it easy for the recruiter to make that jump as to what your skills are and how they apply to the position that you're applying for, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. You want to make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to read your resume and say, yes, like that person is a great fit for this role. I can see it because it's literally written on the paper. That's how simple and straightforward you want it to be and how targeted you want it to be towards a prospective company that you're applying for. The other bullet point here to call out is to quantify your successes with numbers wherever possible. If there's people that you led, maybe percentage of time saved or amount of money you made or saved for the company, whatever it might be, you want to highlight these. And again, I'll show some specific examples that make it a little bit more clear about the best way to do this. But this is how you want to structure your bullet points. You want to use this framework called the PAR method, which is essentially P stands for the project, the problem, the context, task, or job. A is the activity. What did you actually do related to that project? And R is what were the results? What were the outcomes? What were the benefits of the actual responsibility that you had in the workplace? So again, this is thinking about how you want to best capture and document your work experience. So each bullet point statement on your resume, you want to start with a strong action verb. So like this is the activity. So you want to start with the activity, what you actually did, followed by the project, what were you doing it for, and then the result of those actions. So essentially what you're answering is, what did you do? Why did you do it? And what was the outcome of that? So the way to visualize it is this little diagram at the bottom. So essentially you have an action verb at the very beginning. So skills and industry specific competencies. In this case, it's a very simple example, but it's just helped, right? So this is what your bullet point is. You've helped. The relevant task, which is discussing your experience, students with questions about scholarships, then the outcome. What end result did you do the task, right? To drive application rates. And then finally, the actual result number, which is resulting in a 50% increase. So this is kind of a framework you can continue to use. And here's some comparisons of how you can do that. Let's say you work in IT or software. Let's say one of the things that you did is based on software updates, you've created documentation and you've essentially made it a lot easier for people to follow along, whether it's engineers or end users, how your tool works or whatever it might be that the software you built does. A bad way to document this on your resume would just be, I created documentation for new software updates. It's very simplistic. It doesn't fully convey why it was created, what is the value of it, what did it result in. That's when you use like the PAR framework. So here it would be improved software documentation. That's the action. To drive quicker bug resolution time. That's the problem or project, resulting in 300 man hours being saved annually via increased workplace efficiency. So you're expressly quantifying what the impact of your action is. This carries a lot more weight to a potential recruiter than someone just seeing, oh, he or she created documentation. That doesn't really say much. Documentation could be anything, right? It could be something where you literally just updated a Word document, or it could be a very robust entire system that you created to make sure that moving forward, any sort of updates that are occurring within the software system, right, are being captured accurately, whatever it might be. You want to make sure that you're maximizing the impact of your words to best convey that with a number. So yeah, improve software documentation, great. What does that actually mean? And when you quantify that by saying it's 300 man hours being saved, then they have a clear sense of, okay, this is pretty high impact. This actually really had an effect and a result. It wasn't just something that they were able to quickly do, which didn't really mean anything, right? Another example, let's say you're a customer service person. So a bad way to put this would be I provided excellent customer service and helped customer find items in a retail environment. A good or better example is assisted an average of 40 customers per day in finding or selecting items, provided recommendations, and generated 8K in additional revenue. So again, it gives both a sense of scope. It lets the reader know how many customers on average were you actually interacting with, right? Like, were you a customer service person that just maybe one person wanders into a store or one person hops on a phone and you let them know what to do? Like, it's not really as impactful as putting a number to 40 customers per day and then maybe calculating the average cost of what they bought and then multiplying that out and realizing that it's 8K in additional revenue. I think one of the challenges with this format is being able to quantify impacts. I think for a lot of our jobs, whatever they may be or wherever you're working, we don't really have access to direct numbers of how the actions of what we did are impacting, the company or whatever it might be. And I think these are the places in which you should try and estimate it to the best of your ability. Like try to get some sort of proxy. Is it maybe like people that had to spend less time doing something, right? Maybe that's less hours spent on a task. Maybe it led to more revenue being created. So that's more dollars for the company. Maybe it saved money, right? Maybe it led to, you can even quantify like, okay, if 300 man hours are being saved and the average employee makes like, 100K, let me multiply that by like, the 300 and then give a better quantification of what I actually did. That's the idea here is you want to add some sort of metric that conveys the actual impact of what you accomplish. That has a lot more of an impact on a reader than someone reading 80% of resumes that just have very generic, simple kind of bullet points that don't really stand out. So this is one way to do that and stand out in the crowd. This is just a recap of what I mentioned earlier. You want to be tailoring your resume to job descriptions by highlighting desired skills. So when the employer posts a job opening, they're including a list of responsibilities of required and preferred qualifications. So you should be taking those qualifications and adding similar language or keywords throughout your resume to show how you can best fulfill the role. So in order to actually do this, right, first what you want to do is you want to write down the job description, highlight any significant keywords related to skills. These could be words or phrases that are unique to the job or recur throughout the posting. If they talk about data analysis a lot, that's probably a sign that they expect someone that's got, strong data analysis skills, is good with technical software, is quick on turning around like, Excel or whatever it might be, right? These are kind of the patterns that you're kind of reading through the job to see what exactly they're looking for. It's essentially your attempt at reading between the lines of what they've posted in a job description to see what they're actually searching for. And then you need to think about how you can best position yourself on paper to seem like the person that can bring that to the table. So yeah, so step one, review the job description, find out what they're looking for. Two, compare a resume. Think about what skills you're highlighting in your own resume. So read through it, look at all the bullet points. Do you notice any patterns of what's happening most often versus what's happening most not? That again tells you what the average reader is going to think are your strengths and weaknesses. And do you think maybe there's any gaps there? Do you think maybe you're highlighting the wrong things in your resume compared to what the job's looking for? The job may still be a good fit, but it may just be a matter of language. It goes back to the whole idea that you don't want them to figure out how you're a good fit. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to understand that you're a good fit. And the best way to do it is by making the language as clearly as possible to match what the job description is, because then it's a very clear, logical jump on how you fit. Just one call out here is as you repurpose your summary and work history to use these keywords, which you should be doing if you want to have the best odds at any job position, is you want to be repurposing your job descriptions, your summaries and all that. But be careful not to embellish or add anything that you haven't done, because you'll definitely be asked about it by a hiring manager. So although you're tailoring your resume to best meet like these different positions, you don't want to add something you didn't do, because, especially if it's like a perfect match, if they're looking for someone who's like, has 40 plus, whatever, 400 plus hours in Python, and you say 400 plus hours in Python used to, do XYZ, they're going to ask you about it because they're very curious about what exactly you did with that. And these are one of the ways where, it's not going to be a good look if you ended up embellishing or exaggerating what you actually did. So my main call out there is you want to make it as realistic as possible. Like be truthful and accurate about what you actually did. All you're doing is just rephrasing it in a way to better resonate compared to what you're matching against. Cool. So with that, I'm going to show you a few different resume examples and how some of those principles can be applied. I'll start with my own resume. So this is an old resume of mine. This is from 2 years ago, I think. But essentially, there's a few things I want to call out here. First, I want to call out that you can see how it's all on one page. It's very compact. Again, I'm not super experienced in my career in the sense that I have like 10, 15 years of work experience. I have about 5. So because of that, it makes a lot more sense for me to fit everything on one page. Secondly, there's 2 different jobs prior to the one. This is the resume I used to apply at LinkedIn. But prior to LinkedIn, these were the 2 different jobs that I had. And what I really wanted to highlight is the diversity of projects that I did under both. So that's why I made sure that the majority of the page here is my work experience, with a very small section below of my, my education, my certifications. But really what I'm highlighting is what did I actually do and why am I a value add to LinkedIn? You'll also notice, again, the reason I said LinkedIn is because this is when I was applying to LinkedIn. The other thing you'll notice is that there's no executive summary or like sort of like personal statement or anything like that. There's nothing at the top because I felt for me personally, what best conveyed my value is showing the diversity of projects that I worked on and showing like the actual impact that I had on those projects. So one example I want to highlight is again, that PAR framework with this bullet point right here. So what I'm doing here is I implemented an and-plan solution. That's the action that increased quarterly forecasting accuracy, introduced detailed scenario planning, gross margin target setting capabilities. That's the problem. That's the P. Reducing process time by 30%. That's the R. So I'm using that same framework of showing the action, showing the problem or project that it's a part of, and showing what the result of that was. That's how it's being used here. The other call out I want to make here is that these bullet points, I've tailored them to the job position I'm applying for. The job position I was applying for at that time at LinkedIn wanted to see a lot of like process knowledge. Like what are the types of processes that I changed? What is the type of like, technology that I used? What are the people that I managed in order to get there? So those are the kind of bullet points that I'm highlighting within the project that I worked on. Now, let's say instead of that, let's say I was applying for like a sales position instead. What I would do is I would actually rewrite some of this to better highlight things that I consider good skills for a sales role. So instead of focusing on operational knowledge, strategic business practices, instead of focusing on technology and how it changes processes, what I would do instead is I'd talk about ways that I built consensus. Were there times I persuaded someone to do something, right? That's something that's probably used more in a sales role. So I would say something like, convince the end client that the right solution for their quarterly forecasting, scenario planning was to use the recommendation that I came up with, right? And it led to the same result, which is reduced process time by 30%. What I'm highlighting now is my convincing skills that I persuaded the client that this is the way to do it and this is what would be a better outcome for them. And that on a sales resume for a sales position is going to resonate a lot better for the recruiter because the recruiter's immediately like, okay, this person Varun has convinced people to do something. He's going to convince people to sell, our product, or he has solved a problem for the client, and selling is solving a problem for our, clients by selling them a product that's going to solve their problem. So it's easier for them to see how that connects. Whereas if I talk more about like the Anaplan solution, which is like the tech that I used, right? The actual forecasting process, that's a little bit less like, less resonating. It's not as relevant for like a sales position. So that's why I would tailor this and rewrite this. But again, I'm not changing or adding anything I did. I'm not like making up things that I didn't do. I'm just rephrasing it to better resonate to a particular audience. And that's what I would recommend when you work on your resume as well, is always rewriting it based on the position you're applying for. Okay, so that's resume number one. I also want to show you a more experienced person's resume. So I've edited their name out. This is someone's resume that I got that didn't want their name out there. But essentially, you'll notice that this is a 2-page resume. This person has been working for a very long time, and all of the areas that they want to highlight here, they thought are very relevant for the positions that they're targeting. So, they have their areas of expertise. They have, the summary statement, the professional summary I mentioned earlier. So they're talking about the professional summary here, their key strengths. What are those key strengths? What are the areas in which they excel? And what has their professional experience been, right? It starts with Deloitte, it goes all the way back. It goes all the way down to Verizon, where it goes back to 1996. There's education, civic engagement. It's a very different format. And again, the reason I'm bringing this up is I want everyone to go with the format that makes the most sense for their situation. This sort of resume is better for someone who's got more experience. They're trying to highlight, hey, I've got 20 plus years of work. If I listed out every single thing I did, it would be way too long. So let me actually summarize and make it easier for the reader to say, okay, it's life cycle, product marketing, and management. I'm really good at that. I've done it for 20 years. This goes along a lot better for someone who's got more experience. So again, depending on your circumstance, I would think about the best way you can convey your value and take your resume accordingly. One last thing, I think there's a lot of different opinions out there about how far back you should include your experiences. For example, this person goes back very far. My personal opinion is that you probably want to leave it to 10 to 15 years, not too much beyond that. I think the older you make yourself seem, the unfortunate reality is sometimes employers aren't as willing to hire you. But again, some people say it's not a problem. Some people say it is. So I think just to stay safe is to keep it at 10-ish years. And then that way you show your wealth of experience without necessarily dating yourself too much. Cool. Okay. So next, I'm going to talk about using LinkedIn. So essentially what I'm going to go through is I'm going to pull up LinkedIn and I'm going to go through these things. I'm going to show you how to make sure your profile is fully filled out and maximized. So what are the things you need to be entering there? Make sure logistics like your background profile photo, the importance of those things. Then I'm going to talk about how to find jobs on the platform, ways to use filters, find specific positions based on what you're looking for, how to find recruiters, how to reach out to those recruiters, and then how to reach out to hiring managers to form connections with people at target companies. And then lastly, how to post and create thought leadership to better position yourself in the job market. So these are the things that I'll go through. Let me just move this out of the way. Give me one sec. Okay, so I'm going to go to LinkedIn. So this is my profile on LinkedIn. So the number one tip is if you're looking for a new job, you want to make sure that your profile is as filled out as possible. When recruiters search for your name, people who have like a bio filled out, a background, a picture, lots of keywords will show up way higher than someone who maybe doesn't have a picture, maybe someone who's not filled it out completely, maybe someone has gaps. You want to make your profile as complete as possible. So again, when a recruiter searches like, person experienced in strategy or whatever it is, your name will rank a little bit higher in the search if you have this fully filled out. So the key things here is one, make sure you have a nice headshot. You want to make sure your picture is clear. It's a picture of you that's relevant. And you can't have a picture that's way too old. I think best practice is to have something that's maybe within 5 years, less if possible. But you don't want to have too old of a picture. You want to make sure the picture is very clear. The clearer the picture, again, it helps it boost your engagement. You want to have a background picture. Again, this can be something, I just have the Chicago skyline because I live in Chicago, but you can make it whatever you want that's relevant for your role or your industry. You want to make sure that you have a title that says clearly what your position is. Some people, what they like to do is like to add further adjectives here that describe what they want to do. For example, they'll say like, change leader, problem solver, this and that, like a few different ways to better elaborate the way that they work. And it's a totally fine strategy. It's one, I don't use that personally, but again, it's totally acceptable to do something like that. It all comes down to personal preference and how you want to brand and market yourself. For me, I wanted something that's very straightforward and just says exactly what my position is. You can go that way, you can go a different way. That doesn't make too much of a difference, but you do need to have something on there. I think the more keywords you add, the better. For me, it's product. That's like a keyword that I want recruiters to find me for. Strategy and operations. Now, one of the things about me personally is I'm actually at a crossroads where I'm not entirely sure if the career path I want to go down is more on the product side or more on the strategy and operations side. There's slightly different career paths. Right now, I do a little bit of both. Because of that, I haven't primed my profile to lean too strongly one particular way. Whereas if you're a lot more sure about the type of role that you want, if I was purely like, okay, I want to pursue product roles, I would make sure that there's as many keywords as possible throughout my page. You'll notice I don't have a bio. I don't have a bio for that reason is because I don't want to lead recruiters one way or the other. I'm still figuring out which way I want to go. Once I make that decision, I'm going to better tailor it to kind of meet that. But what I do want to show you is someone who does have a profile bio written out. So this is one of my colleagues at LinkedIn. And this is an example of a good bio. Again, the reason I don't have one is because I don't want to necessarily market for certain roles right now. But here are some of the things that she has. So she explains first, with over 9 years of work experience in business strategy and operations, that establishes the amount of experience that she has. I'm a senior manager at LinkedIn, tells you the position, where I lead the go-to-market sales strategy and operations team for the SaaS business. Again, additional context. I have strong background in project management, strategy, partnerships, have worked as a chief of staff, the head of global SaaS sales operations and global go-to-market, and a business strategy consultant at Accenture. So these are all keywords. Go-to-market, sales, strategy, operations, chief of staff, partnerships. These are all words that a recruiter is going to be looking up. So when a recruiter is trying to fill like a partnership role, they're going to look up like partnership, plus, maybe a target company or maybe a target city, whatever it might be. They're looking for keywords. And the more that you have in your profile to lead a recruiter to think you'd be a good fit for it, the better. So that's kind of what she's doing here. She then explains my core competencies are driving growth, optimizing performance, enabling collaboration, again, all keywords across teams and stakeholders. I'm passionate about the mission, which is to connect the world's professionals and create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. So this is all about work. Now she's changing it up a little bit and talking about the type of interest that she has. I'm committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and respectful culture with the organization and the industry. Those are keywords that would come up for someone looking for a diversity leader, an inclusion leader, things like that. She talks about her college, UC Berkeley, environmental economics, fluent in English and Cantonese. So these are all different things, again, a way for her to express her interests and express what she wants to do, and to make it easier for a recruiter to find her. So a little different for my profile because I'm still figuring out exactly how I want to position myself, but that's something that I would add here eventually. From there, the next call out is to make sure that all of your experiences are fully filled out. So you want to make sure that not only do you have each of the positions, you can kind of display a progression, and you can also add keywords for what you did in each of these positions. Again, I've left the LinkedIn ones. I haven't filled these out again because I'm not looking for a job at the moment. But when that time comes, I'm going to make sure I maximize the wording to focus on that niche. But for now, it's going to stay like this. But here and elsewhere, I have key points about what I did. I have keywords about the specific actions that I did. And most importantly, what I want to call out here is I have skills called out. You'll notice that there's specific skills here, requirements gathering, business transformation, so on and so forth. But there's skills, and these are other things that recruiters look up. So when a recruiter, again, is looking up for a specific role or when you apply for a job, the job also lists a number of skills. It lists a lot of these things. And so one of the ways that it assesses if you're a good fit for the job is by checking how many of these skills match compared to the job. So that's the main call out here. More on this in a second. I'll show you kind of what this looks like when I open up a job. But yeah, that's the idea here. So I have all my experience. I have my education. I have my certifications here. I have volunteering. And then again, you'll see the skills section at the very bottom. This is where it's important for you to highlight your skills. If you go to show all skills, you'll see the plus icon and you can add as many skills as you want. So you can, suggest it based on your profile. So here's some different things they're suggesting for me. So I'll go ahead and add these as needed. So let's say I'm adding this. It'll ask you where exactly do you want to add this? Like which position does this best match? It says 75% of hires value skill context. So knowing how you use the skill. So select at least one item where you showed how you use that skill. So let me go ahead and just add this here for now. I'll go ahead and click save. So now I have a skill on my profile, and this will make sure that when I apply for positions that have that skill, it'll be a better match for that. So that's a little bit about your profile. I think, again, the main thing to know here is that you want to make it as complete as possible. Add a bio, add all the experience that you have, add skills. The more complete it is, the higher your name shows up in a search query when a recruiter is looking for you. There's a few tips and tricks on how to write the stuff using AI, which I'll get to towards the end of the workshop. But yeah, the idea is complete profile and make it very clear who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, what kind of jobs you're looking for. The other thing you can do at LinkedIn is you can use this open to functionality. This essentially lets people know whether you're open to finding a new job or open to hiring. When you do open to finding a new job, you can add a banner that says looking for a job. This is if you're okay being open about your job search. I know some people aren't exactly comfortable communicating that, which is fine. But if you're someone who maybe you've taken a long career break, it's not like you're waiting for an employer or not or anything like that. You're just looking for a job. That's one way to add a banner, and it'll again slightly boost your name compared to other results in search. So that's another trick to keep you up there. But the best thing to know is, yeah, pepper the entire or profile with as many skills as you can. So that's the profile. Once you have a complete profile, you can start targeting jobs. So I want to show you how to find jobs and the best strategy to get a response on these jobs. So let's go to jobs. So when you go to jobs, you'll notice that there's a few AI recommended jobs just from LinkedIn. They'll tell you what the top job picks are, where they think you'll be a good fit and whatnot. There's suggested job searches. Um, and then there's different like ways you can see how jobs are broken up. There's jobs that are still hiring, like for example, jobs that I may have missed, jobs that are similar to ones that you saved, um, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of different ways that they categorize jobs. But the thing that you should be doing every time you're looking for a job is make sure that you have the right filters for what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for, let's say I'm looking for a product manager job. Let me look that up. So when I search product manager, there's a number of different filters here that I can use. I can click all filters to get a better sense of what they are, because there's a lot of different results, right? 8,000 results. Let's say I want to get very specific. I want them to be, let's say mid-senior level. I want them to be posted within the past month. If anything is posted beyond that, it's probably closed, right? There's companies here. So if I knew exactly I want to work at Google or I want to work at TikTok, whatever it might be, I can go ahead and do that. If not, then you can leave it open. You can also do the type of job that you want. I'm only looking for full-time. I don't want any of these. And then lastly, you can select whether you want hybrid, on-site, or remote jobs. So for now, I'll go ahead and do hybrid. Go ahead and do on-site actually, because it looks like there's no hybrid jobs what I selected. So let me go and click show. And now you'll see that all of my jobs have been filtered from that 8,000 to 23, and these are exactly what I'm looking for. These are all product manager positions. They're at the company I'm targeting. Yeah, this is one way to filter what jobs you're looking for. So now let's say that you have selected, you've decided that, okay, this is the job that I want. I want the senior product manager payments position. I would then come and look at this job and see how much information you can get from the job posting. So here are some of the things you can see, right? It tells you what the minimum qualifications are. It tells you like you need 8 years of experience doing this, 3 years of experience doing that, preferred qualifications. It then tells you about the job. So this is like a baseline. It then tells you what team you're going to be on, payments team. It tells you like which specific domains you're going to be working on. So you can take note of that. You can understand the responsibilities. And then lastly, you can look at this section over here, which tells you what skills you have for the job. So when you come down here, you can kind of see like what qualifications, like skills are associated with your job post. So you can see there are 2 skills on this that are on my profile. Presentations, I have that as a skill. Competitive analysis, I have that as a skill. What's missing from my profile is things like fintech, financial technology, product launch, product management, software development, so on and so forth. So these are additional skills that are on the job. And this goes back to why it's important for you to fill your profile out with the right skills to match the positions you're targeting. Because when you have a higher match of these skills, you're going to show up higher on the rankings when you apply for a position or when a recruiter reaches out to you. So it's important to keep that in mind when you're applying for a specific position. So that's one call out on the actual jobs. So now let's say that you want to apply for this job. So let's say senior product manager, I'll go ahead and click apply. I'll upload my resume. I'll do all of that. Once I do that, you're not done there because what you'll usually notice is there's a ton of applicants for every position. As you can see over here, there's 156 applicants that have applied for this position. So that's pretty competitive. It's going to be very hard for me to just apply, send in my resume and call it a day because the chance of a recruiter looking at my resume out of a pile of 156 applicants is super low. Even if they look at it, they're going to look at it so quickly. I'm not necessarily guaranteed an interview. So there's a lot of things working against me when I do this. So what I'd want to do is to try and do everything within my power on LinkedIn to get a better edge so that maybe my name can be moved up slightly. So here's what I would do. I would go ahead, I would click apply. So it'd be 157 applicants. Then what I would do is I would look up product manager recruiter at Google and reach out to them just to kind of convey my interest. So if I go back real quick, I would just search recruiter. So this is what I'm looking for right here. This is someone recruiting for the position here.
At the big picture.
And what I would probably do then is I would filter companies. And out of the companies, I would select, oops, sorry, give me one sec. Out of the companies here, I would try to find and make sure that it's applicable to the ones that I want. So if I go back just a second, actually. Yeah, product manager recruiter. So I'm seeing a lot of product managers. I'm seeing a product manager at DoorDash. I'm seeing a product manager at Project 44, but I'm not necessarily seeing the recruiter that I'm looking for. So what I might look for instead is just the word recruiter, because chances are someone who's a product manager recruiter doesn't have product manager in the name. Let me look up recruiter. Let me look up people. So I'm now looking for people that are recruiters. And here I can choose what their current company is. So I'll go ahead and select Google because that's what I'm interested in. Let me show results. Okay. I now have 2,400 results of recruiters that are at Google. This still is a little bit too broad. So this is where I would say maybe I'd add the word product, see what I can find. It narrowed it down a little bit. But what I would probably do from here is I'd look at which recruiters are, oh, here we go. So I found one right here, product management recruiter. So this is probably a lot closer to the position that I looked at before. But it takes a little bit of sifting through this, right? There's a lot of results. You got to take some time and look through this. But once you see this, I see, okay, this person is a product management recruiter, Google Cloud. I'd go ahead and send them a message. And this is a message what I would send. I would essentially send a message saying who you are, that you applied for this position, the skills that you bring to the table that make you a good fit. And you like essentially explain that you're very interested in the role. You're very curious about what they look for in candidates and how you can better position yourself. Ask them if they're open to chat. This gives you a little bit of an edge because there's 164 people that applied, but not every single one of those people is reaching out to recruiters. And again, this is just one recruiter. There's a lot on LinkedIn. So you shouldn't just leave it at one person. You got to find as many as you can that are a good fit for the role that you're searching for and send them a message. In fact, that's the exact strategy I used to get my job at LinkedIn. And I can actually show you the message I sent. So let me just look up. So this is a recruiter at LinkedIn. So this is a message I sent to him 2 years ago in 2021, but I essentially had the title of the position I applied for. I said sales strategy and operations associate role. I said, hey, my name is Varun. I'm currently working as a consultant at EY. I recently applied for this position, and I believe my background would make me a good fit for this role. I'd love to connect with you and learn more about what you look for in candidates. If you have any availability, let me know. So super simple. You're just saying, hey, I applied. I'm very interested. Here's my credentials. I think I'd be a good fit. Are you open to chatting? And I sent this to maybe 30 people or 30 to 40 people. Majority of them, I didn't get a response. There's a few that would be like, oh, like good luck, but I'm not actually filling that position. Like try someone else. But then this person said, thanks for your note. I love your background. We're definitely looking for great talent. Let's jump on a call and discuss your experience. Like I happened to find the person. I spoke to this person. This led to my first round interview, so on and so forth. But all it came down to is me going above and beyond compared to the number of applicants that were on that position. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is you'll notice that there's a ton of applicants for all of these positions, but don't let that discourage you. Oftentimes, a lot of these resumes collect, the recruiter hasn't even looked at it yet, but if you take that initiative to go out and search for it, that's when you get the result and can best leverage the platform. So I'd recommend for you to reach out to as many people as you can, as often as you can, because that way you can better position yourself as a candidate. The other thing you could do is, even if you haven't applied for a position, you can just reach out. You can just look up like product manager at Google, right? Just look that up, reach out and just say, hey, like I'm not interested in a career change right now, but I'm super interested in what you do. I'd love to just get like 15 minutes to understand like how you got to your role or something like that. Like doing these sort of things with people on LinkedIn, you'd be surprised how people are often very much willing to help. They'll, accept, they'll hop on a call, they'll give you advice, they'll connect you to who they need to. So that's the main thing. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this session is it's to go out on a limb and put yourself out there and reach out to people, because more often than not, they'll actually help you. But you just got to be very diligent because it's not easy, right? You got to send like hundreds of these messages. People usually don't respond, but the ones that do are very helpful. So that's the thing about the job search, is you want to make sure you devote enough time to reaching out and doing some of this warm networking as well. Cool. So with that, I know we have the next session that we need to get to, which is the interviewing and then the AI sections. So let me go there. Cool. So the main thing about interview prep is you want to make sure that you're looking up common behavioral questions. So there's a whole list here. I'll send this PowerPoint out and we can share this to everyone who attended. But essentially, this is a link that includes all the common behavioral interview questions. I'll actually quickly go there just so you can see what it looks like. But here's a list of common interview questions that people ask. And this is a good thing to reference when you're preparing for a role. You wanna look at all of these, and each of these are organized by section. So they have sections like adaptability, culture add, collaboration, whatever it is they're trying to measure within you. So let's say adaptability. If you look at the questions within adaptability, you'll see this is the most popular question that employers typically ask. It's, tell me about a time when you were asked to do something you never done before. How did you react? What did you learn? And then it even says what the employer is looking for. It says, listen for excitement about tackling new challenges and a willingness to leave their comfort zone, knowing they'll learn something valuable from the experience. So these are just a list of all the different questions that they ask and the kind of things they're looking for in an answer. It gives you like a few different tidbits about like, listen for the fact that the candidate believes that acceptance that change is inevitable. They share how they successfully adapt to new situations. They find the support that they need, so on and so forth. But essentially, when they ask you a lot of these soft behavioral questions, they're looking for very specific strengths, very specific traits that your answer can better kind of convey. So the number one thing to do when you're prepping for an interview is to do your research, practice on common behavioral questions, and then prepare your stories using the STAR method. So the STAR method is another framework. Every time you're asked a question, you should respond by using the STAR, which is situation, describe the challenge and problem you faced, task, explain your role in that situation, action, detail the steps you took to actually address it, and then result, what actually happened. So it's kind of similar to that PAR framework that I mentioned earlier, but this is more for telling a story. It's more for answering a question in the interview. And I'll give an example of what that looks like. But the main thing here is make sure you practice. For your interview prep, make sure that the more often you write down stories, write down potential questions, write down potential answers, the more confident you'll feel and the better prepared you'll be for an actual interview. Another tip is to videotape yourself. So, just maybe in front of your computer, you can start a Zoom recording or maybe use your phone, but make sure that you practice in front of a camera. So you'll notice areas where you stumble, maybe your answers aren't as clear. Maybe you realize, oh, like I actually didn't fully answer that question. Like my story wasn't that relevant. Like there's all these little realizations and learnings you can get out of videoing yourself before an interview. So again, this is something you can do to best position yourself for an interview. But going back to the STAR method real quick, I want to expand on that a little bit. So again, every time they ask a question, a behavioral interview question, make sure you answer with a situation, task, action, and result. So as an example, let me zoom in actually. Okay, so STAR example. So one example of a question you may have in a behavioral interview is describe a time when you were under a lot of pressure at work. How did you react? So you answer by providing the situation. This is an example answer, right? So in my previous job as an account executive, one of my coworkers quit immediately after signing the biggest client of our firm. Although I had already managed a full load of accounts, I was assigned this new client as well. I knew the stakes were high, and if we lost this deal, we wouldn't hit our goal. So you're already establishing what the situation is. You're already explaining like what is happening to you, and then you explain what you did to address it. That's the action. I took some measures to de-stress. I carefully evaluated and restructured my task list, make sure I can manage all my duties. I made myself completely available to the client, and I sacrificed evenings and weekends to take calls till the project was delivered. So it's very clear what you did. And then the result of that was the client was so impressed with my dedication, they immediately signed an annual contract to net our company $5 million, right? So long answer, but the idea here is that you want to reflect on your own experiences and see how you can best position yourself for the question that they're answering. This framework just makes it very easy for someone to follow, like what the situation was, what the task was, what the action was, and then what the result was. Last thing about interview prep is this is also a time for you to ask questions to the interviewer. So usually they'll save about 5 minutes at the end. So you won't be able to ask every single thing, right? But if you probably be able to ask about 3. But some of the questions you can ask is things like fast forward 1 year. You're looking back on this hire, aka you. What did they do to exceed every expectation? And this is effective because it shows the interviewer you're results focused. You want to know what success looks like, so you know you can make it happen. And you're planting a positive image in your employer's, in the interviewer's head, because they're now picturing you in that role a year from now, and they're picturing you doing well. So this is like one way where you can leave an impact on the interviewer by showing that you're really results focused and by, thinking about how you do in the future. Another example is, what is the most unexpected thing you've learned while working there? People aren't prepared for it. They give you stories, answers. It also gives you insights into the job. Is it something where a lot of things that are unexpected happen often? Like, is it a stressful situation, right? Like, or are things under control? There's a lot of different like learnings you can kind of get out of this. But I won't go through every single one of these. Again, I'll be sharing the deck out, but with the interest of time, I'll move on to the next segment. But you can take a look at these, think about it a little bit, and kind of formulate some of these questions, because one way to also impress an interviewer is by coming prepared with good questions that really make them think. Cool. So our last section is going to be on Gen AI and ChatGPT. And I want to talk about how it can be used to improve your job search. So first, super quick summary. I'll keep it very high level because AI is a very long and deep topic and probably needs a completely different, like an hour of its own just to talk about. But at a very high level, Gen AI, for those who may not know, refers to deep learning models that can generate high quality text, images, and other content based on the data that they're trained on. So these AI programs and algorithms look at a lot of different types of data. They categorize it, they figure out how it works, and then they can then spit out an answer like when we type a prompt in. So ChatGPT is probably the one that most of you have heard about, but ChatGPT is a chatbot that uses natural language to create a conversational dialogue. It can respond to questions, it can compose written content, articles, so on and so forth. So essentially, it can hold a conversation, it can provide any sort of output. And really what we're going to be doing is using it to help improve our resume, help improve our interviewing, and help improve the way we craft messages to reach out to people. So to kind of explain how that works, I want to talk about AI prompting. So prompting is how humans can talk to AI at a very high level, at a very simplified level. It's a way to tell the AI what we want and how you want it, usually done with words. For our purposes, it'll be with just words, no code, anything like that. But for example, you might want to generate an image, but you have nothing to show as an example. What would you do? Like think about this, like you'd be doing the same thing with an artist if you were to hire one. If you were to hire an artist and you wanted the artist to paint something for you, you would describe it as detailed as possible. You'd tell them the angles, you tell them the tone, you tell them the color, and you'd also maybe like draw a sketch and say, I want something like this, but better, right? Like if you were telling an artist to do something, you would be very specific and be very detailed by telling them what you want it to create. That's the same concept with AI. To get the most out of AI, you need to write very clear instructions, be very specific about the type of input you're providing, what output you're expecting, the tone of voice it should use, how creative it should be, so on and so forth. So as an example, a bad way to talk to AI and type into ChatGPT is summarize the meeting notes. If you have a bunch of meeting notes, you paste them in there. If you type that in, it could summarize it any number of ways because you're not really being specific or clear about what you want it to do. You're saying to summarize it, but summarize it could mean something very different to different people, right? So instead, a better way to tell it to summarize something is by saying, summarize the meeting notes in a single paragraph, like copy and paste the notes, then write a markdown list of the speakers, each of their key points, and finally list the next steps or action items suggested by speakers, if any. Now you're going to get a much better output. You're telling it exactly how you want it summarized. You're telling it exactly what format you want, and you're telling it exactly what you're going to be using it for, essentially. That's the main principle here, is you want to be very detailed, and you want to use it and create good prompts. So with that, here are a few ways you can use AI for your job search. So one is to find top skills of a job, analyze gaps in your resume, and reword the resume to align to those skills. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, a lot of what you're doing in those early stages when you're creating your resume is you're looking at what the position is, you're looking at what the top skills are for that position, and you're looking at how your resume matches up against it. So you can use AI to make that whole process a lot easier and a lot quicker. And that's where we have this prompt over here. So I'll actually do it in real time. So I've written the prompt here, but essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to tell the AI take a look at a job description. I'm going to copy and paste a job description, list out the top 5 skills I think the hiring manager is looking for in that position. It'll tell me what those are. Then I'll say, take a look at my resume. Please include or indicate how many of those skills are reflected and let me know how many are missing. Then tell me how I can reword the bullet points to better highlight the missing skills. So I'm going to tell it step by step how to do this. So that way it's even less work for me, especially when you consider the fact that if you're applying to a ton of jobs, you need to be constantly rewording your resume, constantly writing prompts. So this is a good way to kind of make it a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and do this. So let me open up ChatGPT. I actually already did this, but let me just do it real time. One sec. Okay. So I'll start by telling ChatGPT what I wanted to do. So when you go to ChatGPT, you can kind of enter your own text.
What are you
And
watching? It's
you can kind of
making me.
make it go from there. So I'll start by saying, I want you to act as a career and job expert. This is me talking to the AI, right? You are good at analyzing resumes, highlighting strengths, recognizing weaknesses, and coming up with plans to overcome weaknesses. Does that make sense? This is me confirming that ChatGPT understands what I'm saying. So it says, absolutely makes sense. I'd be happy to help you do this. Please feel free to share and blah, blah. Okay. So now let's go ahead and use that prompt that I have over here. So I'll say, I'm going to copy this. Go back. So I'll say, take a look at this job description. Please list out the top 5 skills you think hiring manager is looking for to fill the position. So in these brackets, I'm going to paste a job position. So this is a job that I've picked. It's a product manager job at Anthropic. So I will copy and paste this. Go back. I'll just say in the brackets, just so it's very clear where I'm pasting the resume. So within this, I'm not going to paste that entire job position that I copied. I'm going to send that. Cool. So now it's giving me 2 responses. So it says, based on the provided job description for product manager, here are the top 5 skills they're looking for. Product management experience, technical background, data-driven decision-making, adaptability and problem solving, communication, and collaboration. These are 2 different responses, but they both are essentially telling me the same thing. It's just asking me for some feedback to say which one I like better. So I'll just go ahead and click this for now. Okay, so I have this feedback. Great. So now I know what the top 5 skills are. So now I'm going to say, take a look at my resume. Please indicate how many of those skills are reflected. Feel free to, let me know if anything is missing. So let me go back. I would go ahead and use ChatGPT to do the following. I would say this, take a look at my resume in the brackets, just so it's super clear what I mean by that. So I'll go ahead and copy my resume. If I go back, I'll go ahead and paste it. Okay, so I've pasted my resume, and then I'm asking it, please indicate how many of those skills are reflected in my resume. Feel free to look for words that paraphrase those 5 skills. Also, it's okay to let me know if those skills are not in my resume. So I'm letting it know, hey, like analyze my resume, look at those 5 things you said. Let me know if they're in there. If they're not in there, that's fine too. Just so it's super, super clear to the AI that it shouldn't just be saying what it needs to say to make me feel good. I want an actual like honest response. So I go ahead and send that. Okay, here we go. Your resume reflects several of the skills outlined in the job description, but there are areas where you can further emphasize or include specific details to enhance alignment. This is perfect because this is exactly what I'm using it for. So I'm trying to see where there's misalignments. Let's break down how your resume aligns. So it starts by saying like product management experience, these experiences, demonstrate how it could be applicable to product development. Oh yeah, here we go. So technical background, AI, ML knowledge. So this is now saying While the job description emphasizes AI ML, your resume focuses on enterprise performance management, Anaplan modeling, technology transformation. However, technical proficiency is evident in your roles, especially in leading Anaplan related projects, managing offshore Anaplan developers. So it's calling out specifically where a gap lies. It lets me know that, hey, this part does not exactly work, but this part is kind of applicable, but not really. So it's essentially providing me this detail. So now that I have this, I can say, okay, great. Now, please tell me how I can reword the bullet points in my resume to better highlight the missing skills. So we essentially did 3 different steps. We're like, tell me what's most important. Tell me if those important things are on my resume. And if they're not on my resume, which it has told me that they're not, tell me how I can rewrite them to better match what is needed. So I'm not going to say this as the 3rd step. Here we go. So now it's revised my answers. It's given me a lot more applicability to the actual job description. So again, this is just one example of how you can use AI to make it a little bit easier to do all those things I talked about. Rewriting a resume, rewording it, right? The sky's the limit in terms of how you can use it. This is just one example. I've given a few examples here, right? Like, assume you're my hiring manager, tell me what interview questions you'd ask me. It'll give me a list of those questions. Then I'll say, great. Now write highly persuasive answers to those using the STAR framework. Use them based on my resume, right? You can take off all this work and put it on the AI. So you can do these things to be as prepared as possible and yeah, do as little work as possible in order to get there. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the topics for today. I'll pause. I know I went a little bit over time, so I apologize for that, but hopefully folks can stay on for questions and stuff.
Thank you, Varun. We do have a couple questions. So you can hear me okay, right?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So the first question is from Vidya. What about resumes where experience is limited, but there is requisite educational background? This is often true for moms coming back to workforce after a long sabbatical.
Yeah, I would say one of the things you can do if the experience may be limited is to think about anything that's transferable that could work in that context. So like, for example, if you, let's say maybe like you're a mom that's taken a long sabbatical, but you worked like a finance job like way back in the day, and maybe like you've taken some time off, but in that time you've been working on different like nonprofits or whatever it might be, volunteering. That's one way to go about it. It's about thinking about if there's anything which you've done with your time at all, like whether it's like helping like your kid prepare for school or help their finances, manage their finances, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different things you can do to reframe it as something that contributes to your experience. That's one way to go about it. The other way is if truly, you've been only focused on making sure like, your family's needs are met and things like that. A lot of what you can do is focus on skill building. So you can like, again, take a few courses, take a few certifications, just something that's very recent, just to show and communicate to the employer that you're still, still valuing the importance of upskilling. And then you can kind of explain, hey, I've been out of the workforce for, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever it might be. You can kind of explain that, you're trying to re-enter, and you can really emphasize the experience you had before you took that sabbatical. And you can kind of talk about like the key things that you did there again, right? Like you could always like further strengthen what you did in the past. Then you could say, hey, like 15 years ago, I used XYZ software to accomplish XYZ task, or I did XYZ, financial reporting, whatever it might be. Given that I've been out of the workforce for about 10 years, I've spent the last like, few months focusing on learning SQL or focusing on learning this new skill, just to make sure that my skills are still relevant. I still have the same problem solving skills I used to. I'm just a little rusty with the technology. So I'm relearning this. So that's like one way you can kind of go about it. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, that
Definitely.
was thank you so much, Varun. Oh, thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you. So the next question, I do have a question. Do you suggest, I know we went through ChatGPT, but otherwise, do you suggest getting our resumes proofread by somebody?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think getting your resume proofread is a great way to make sure that there's no typos, but also more importantly to make sure that your content is relevant and applicable. I would suggest anyone in your network that's currently working or in a position that you want to be in, if you have anyone like that, they would be a great resource. I would start there. For example, if you want to go into IT or software, but you know people who are doing that right now that are in a job, they would be a great person to look at it. Worst case scenario, if there's no one in your network, if you're targeting something that maybe you don't have any connections to, you can always look at other options. Like for example, there's services you can pay for. There's people, you know, I'm also happy to look at it too if needed. But yeah, I would say whoever you're close to or someone in your network that has the position you want would be the best option. There are services to pay for, but I would just be very careful with those. Some of them charge super high fees and may not be worth it, but I would say anything under maybe around $50 is probably worth it. There's a number of sites like Upwork, Fiverr, things like that, where they have contractors that are vetted and they can provide, yeah, some services in that sense. But I would not pay anything more than $50 because usually at that point it's not worth it. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Do we have any other questions? Please let us know. We can unmute you if you want to ask Varun. Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you, Varun. That was very insightful workshop. Your expertise is valuable, and we appreciate your generosity in sharing your knowledge. Of course, special thanks to Padma Jambunath for making this workshop possible. Thank you, Padma. Excited to apply these strategies in our professional journeys. And thank you again for a fantastic session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, and one last thing. Maybe I don't know who, but I can share the deck and I can share some of this content too if you want to send that out. And feel free to share my email too. If people have questions, you can reach out to me via email. So yeah, I'll text offline and we can figure
Hi,
that out.
Varun. I heard that this session is recorded. Can you share the recording and the sample resumes also?
Yes, we will send it to you, Shubha.
Okay.
Shubha will send
Thank
it.
you.
We are recording the session.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you, Varun.
Cool.
Thanks, Varun.
yeah, thank
Yep.
you for a wonderful session, Varun. I mean, I was really blown away by everything you taught us. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
I look forward to your to your presentation deck. If you could share that with us, it will help us review the material as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Very happy to help. But yeah,
Thank
have
you.
a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Varun.
you.
Thank
Yep, no
you.
problem.
Thank you,
Bye.
Have a good
Padma.
night. Bye.
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 Thanks, Shubha.